Hey everyone, Lewis aka Spider-Man 1991 here, and I am bringing back my weekly comic book review. When I started my channel, I did weekly comic book reviews for a number of years until I eventually stopped doing them because at the time there was some family stuff that came up and it had me going back and forth between my parents' house and college, so I decided to just end the weekly reviews. And the last couple months I've been thinking about bringing them back. I figured why not try it this March, just go through it, just go through it this March as sort of a trial period, see how people like it and whether or not this is a good format. The format will be different from the way I used to do my reviews. When I used to do them, I always did them alphabetized by company and then by the series. This time I'm just gonna do them like what was my least favorite comic and what was my most favorite comic, so that way people will have a better understanding about what I bought, what I read. And also I will put I might start putting the list of comics that I bought this week in the description below, so that way people can understand what I bought this week if they want to see a certain comic. And I might put them in the ranked order, that way it'll be easier for people to find them if they just want to watch the video for a certain comic. Okay, so without further ado, here is my weekly review for the comics that I bought this Wednesday, March 7th, 2018. I'll start with my least popular comic, well, my least favorite comic all the way to what I thought was my pick of the week. So let's get started. First comic is from DC. It is Black Lightning, Cold Dead Hands number 5. Now, when this mini-series was announced, I thought it was pretty intriguing, especially because we have the new Black Lightning TV series on the CW right now. And if you're not watching that, you should, because it is awesome. And when I got the first issue of Black Lightning, Cold Dead Hands, which is also written by Black Lightning's creator, Tony Isabella, it was very good. It was basically Black Lightning not only dealing with the 100, but also dealing with the police who think that he's a menace or vigilant or a real danger to the community and stuff. And it had a very good plot to it, but this issue, while it did have a cool fight scene between Black Lightning and Tobias Whale, where Tobias corners Black Lightning and uses the device to temporarily short out his powers, and they end up having an old-fashioned fist fight, that was a pretty great scene. But unfortunately, there were some elements in this story that really stood out for me. For one thing, Tobias Whale is using alien assassins, and there's also shapeshifters in Cleveland. By the way, the series takes place in Cleveland, not Suicide Slums or like in the mainstream DC universe or in or Freeland from the TV series. No, it takes place in Cleveland. And it just, those things like really stuck out for me because I'm like, those don't belong in a Black Lightning story. I mean, come on. I will say though that one last positive thing about this issue is that there was a nice introduction, since this is sort of a retelling of like Black Lightning Year 1 in a way. I would almost say that this series is sort of like Ultimate Black Lightning. If you know Ultimate Marvel, you'll get that reference. And there is a great reintroduction scene between Jefferson Pierce and Lynn Stewart meeting for the first time. So that was a very nice scene. But really, this issue just really knocked the series down a couple pegs for me. There's only one issue left coming out next month. Hopefully by then they'll salvage it, and because I have been enjoying this series and I do not want it to fizzle out towards the end. Alright, speaking of things that fizzle out, Spider-Man 238. Basically, the Sinister Six, who are led by Miles' uncle, Aaron Davis, who's now the new Iron Spider, put their plan to action, and they steal the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. Miles goes to stop them, but he fails, and that's pretty much it. This issue really does show my problems with Bendis' writing. While I do like Bendis' writing for his dialogue and his character development, when it comes to plots, they're usually very slow, like painstakingly slow. You will have entire issues of filler before something happens, and that's honestly what happens in this issue. It's just slow. While yes, Sinister Six finally do put their plan to action, it just quickly, Miles is quickly taken out, and it just, it felt very average to me, and I'm really and this is going to be Bendis' last arc writing Miles Morales, and I hope he can really finish it strong, because I just got through, last week I read his last arc on Jessica Jones. That was awesome, but this one on Spider-Man just feels like he isn't bringing his A game. All right, next up, Nightwing number 40 from DC. Okay, the story arc, The Untouchable with the Judge and everything, it's been going on for a while now. Like, every issue seems like Dick's finally reaching a conclusion, but then, oh wait, no, it's gonna keep going. I mean, I don't like it when stories tend to like stretch themselves. And again, my problem with Nightwing is my same problem with Spider-Man, is just that the plots are just slowly moving along. We're just going through, waiting for a conclusion to come, and it's just not happening, which is kind of sad. The reason why between the two, though, if I had to pick between Spider-Man and Nightwing, I would probably go with Nightwing, because I like Dick Grayson more, and there are some good moments of dialogue that in there written by Sam Humphries. So that's why Nightwing is just one tier above Spider-Man in this review. All right, next up from Marvel, She-Hulk number 163. This is the last issue of She-Hulk. It's over. All right, well, it's a very nice one-shot involving Jennifer being, now that she's back to her usual She-Hulk form, she teams up with her best friend Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, for a little adventure where they have to protect the mutant daughter of a client of Jennifer's when the girl is pretty much her school's first mutant class president, and she's under fire from an anti-mutant organization. It is a very nice story, and now that Jen's got her usual She-Hulk form back and she's got some confidence again, at the end of the series she decides to quit working with the firm she's been with, and she takes her assistant Bradley with her to start her own firm. The series had a very nice ending. I really think She-Hulk got a very well-deserved ending. It also opened up new possibilities, so I think come around for Marvel's new fresh start, because they're going to start putting out number ones. I really hope that they get She-Hulk out. They really put out another She-Hulk series, although She-Hulk will be featured in Avengers, which I'm looking forward to. She-Hulk number 163, it had a very nice ending that felt like it really tied the series together. So if you've been reading this since the series was relaunched back when it was Hulk after Civil War II, then I would say this is the ending that fans definitely deserved. And the next comic is another conclusion. Hawkeye number 16. This is on my iPad because I read this series digitally. Now, like She-Hulk number 163, there's a really great conclusion to it, to the current arc, that really sort of wraps some things up. However, and there's also a really great sweet moment at the end where Kate ends up dealing with Eden, not by punching her out or taking her down, but just by talking to her as a person, which was very nice and refreshing. Also, I really like this series overall because the writer Kelly Thompson did an amazing job with Kate Bishop's character, and she showed that Kate can hold her own title by herself. No Clint Barton, no Young Avengers, by herself. She is a very fascinating character that does deserve her own title. Unlike She-Hulk, though, there were a few things left open at the end of the issue, and there was also a little teaser that said Kate Bishop would be returning in August 2018. So it's possible we could be getting another Hawkeye series featuring Kate Bishop later in the summer, which would be fantastic. Turning to DC, Green Arrow number 38. This is Ben Percy's last issue on Green Arrow. You're noticing a trend here, right? The last three, this is the third title in a row where I've said either the series is concluding or someone's run is concluding. Okay, anyways, Green Arrow number 38. It's Ben Percy's last issue, and he wraps everything up, nicely. This issue is primarily the trial of Oliver Queen, but thankfully, since Oliver found out that the girl the Ninth Circle killed and framed him for murder was actually alive, it doesn't really last more than one issue, which is great because a lot of stories, whenever there's the hero on trial, they tend to stretch a lot. But yeah, mainly this issue is mostly told from Oliver's perspective, as he's basically in the court delivering a monologue about how he's changed as a person and stuff and everything. And it's just a very well-written monologue. In fact, when I was reading it, I felt like I heard Steve Amell, who plays Oliver Queen on Arrow, reading it, which was fantastic. Ben Percy really nailed the character of Oliver Queen in this series, and it is a fantastic title. In fact, when when Rebirth launched all their new #1s, and Green Arrow was one of my favorites, and I even said in my video of top 5 Rebirth series that Green Arrow was, I don't remember the exact placing, but I said it was #4, but Ben Percy had an amazing run on Green Arrow, and if you are a Green Arrow fan, I highly recommend you check out his run. If you haven't read it yet, start from the very beginning because it is awesome. Next on the review, Batman White Knight #6. This series has been a very fun and enjoyable wild ride, and that phrasing is appropriate because this issue features a really cool Batmobile chase where Jim Gordon, Nightwing, and the GCPD work together in order to take Batman down. And during the in order to deal with the Batmobile, they have to set off an EMP, and they have to go with a more analog-powered vehicle. And Jim Gordon ends up driving the Batmobile from the 1989 Batman Tim Burton movie, which is awesome. And I think that's a really great and for a lot of Batman fans, I'm pretty sure that's the Batmobile that's iconic to them. Yeah, so basically Gordon leads Nightwing and the GCPD to take Batman down, which they're able to do and crash the Batmobile. But when Batman gets out, he ends up having a good old-fashioned fist fight with Jack Napier, who in this story arc, it's focused on the Joker, who is cured, and he decides to try to take Batman down through politics because he sees Batman as sort of a menace to Gotham City. And a lot of people start switching Napier's point of view. Now, they end up taking Batman to Arkham. They do not unmask him because that was one of the components Nightwing made when he agreed to helping Jim Gordon arrest Batman. Also, we get just as they take Batman to Arkham, though, Neo Joker shows up and fires a massive freeze cannon at a section of Gotham City and demands that Jack Napier be brought to her immediately. The series also has a very interesting subplot about about the character Mr. Freeze and his relationship with Dr. Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father. Okay, when this series was first announced, I really thought that it was just going to try to vilify Batman. It was just going to be a straight up story where they make Joker into the good guy and just straight up vilify Batman. But that's not the case. With this issue, it pretty much shows that Batman isn't really technically the bad guy, but his methods are finally called into question. Like, this is a version of Gotham City where they finally while Batman's methods are effective, are they really the right way? And Jack Napier is able to use all of that in order to sort of rise to power and take Batman down. And it's not anything like he hates Batman. It's still like he hates Batman. It's just that he sees Batman as a danger to the city he loves and wants to keep people safe. But yeah, this series has been a very fascinating read. It's got a very interesting portrayal of the Joker. It is reminiscent of a classic Batman arc called Going Sane, but this one is able to go much more detail into it and show not just how Joker's affected by him going sane, but like everything else in Gotham City. And if you are a Batman fan, then I highly recommend you check this book out. Next up on my list is a comic from Dark Horse, Dr. Star and the Kingdom of Lost Tomorrows. Alright, this takes place in the world of the Black Hammer comic book, which is also published by Dark Horse and written by Jeff Lemire. But this title is sort of a dual narrative where we have one part of the story in the past and one in the present, where we follow the character Dr. James Robinson, who during World War II harnessed the energy from a parallel dimension called the Parazone. And using this energy, he becomes the superhero known as Dr. Star. In the present, though, we see Dr. Robinson going to his old observatory, looking at things, sort of thinking of past memories, and we find out in this issue, and in the present, makes his way towards the hospital, where we find out that he's visiting his terminally ill son, Charlie. And also throughout the story, the caption boxes that we see are Dr. Robinson's thoughts, but it's basically a letter he wrote to Charlie. Well, first off, this title is clearly an homage to DC Comics' book and character Starman, specifically the run by James Robinson. I mean, the protagonist's name, I mean, that's like the perfect just not even a Easter egg or trying hard to hide. It's the protagonist is the same name as the writer. Yeah, but it definitely does feel like it pays homage to the way James Robinson wrote his Starman series, and the Dr. Star that we see seems to be a combination of both Jack Knight and Ted Knight. So this is a great first issue because it gives us an idea about who this guy is. He was a scientist who worked for the government and wanted to give his family a new life, and then he became a superhero. But somehow his son ended up terminally ill and in cancer, and from what I can tell from the narrative and the story, it seems that Dr. Robinson and Charlie have a very strained relationship. So and the first issue doesn't really give any indication about how that could have happened. So I'm looking forward to reading the next issue of the series and seeing how this story progresses, how we learn what happened to Dr. Star, what made him retire, and what happened to his son. And as someone who really loved the James Robinson Starman run, this was a real fun thing to read. If you read James Robinson Starman, you should. It's awesome. But if you have, you should definitely pick out this comic. Next comic is Captain America number 699. Captain America finds out he's not the only surviving hero in the year 2025. With the Hulk and Thing added to their ranks, Cap's resistance is able to easily break through Rampart's fortress and quickly dethrone King Babington. That's what happens. I really love the Captain America title a lot. Mark Waid, he's a fantastic writer. He really knows how to write a good superhero comic, and a lot of his writing has an optimistic feeling, and I think that works perfectly with a character like Captain America. And also, the artist on the book, Chris Samnee, I've really been loving his artwork on this title too. He's drawn some really cool action sequences, also some like really cool single panel shots that would just be perfect posters. Like, I would hang some of this stuff on the wall in my room if it were available as a poster. I mean, this feels like, especially after all the stuff with Secret Empire, this felt like this was definitely the perfect team to relaunch this character. And I have been loving the Captain America title since these two took over it. If you haven't been reading their run yet, I highly recommend you start reading it. So far, this arc, also the issue itself, I keep talking about the overall series, but the issue itself was very great. This is the second part in Out of Time. I felt like they really wrapped up the story right now. I think next issue is 700, so it will be interesting to see how they close the story overall after that. Yeah, Captain America has been a fantastic title, and this issue has been, every issue they've been writing has been very, very fantastic. I look forward to this every month, so if you haven't been reading it, if you are a Captain America fan, you should be. Next up from DC is Superman number 42. This is the first part in Bizarroverse. Alright, Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, their latest story arc involves the rebirth version of Bizarro and his son, Boy-Zorro. This arc will also be the Tomasi and Gleason's final arc on the Superman title before Brian Michael Bendis takes over in May. Now, we get a very interesting scenario with Boy-Zorro. We do see that, like John, Boy-Zorro grew up with his parents on a farm, but it is not as friendly or as happy as the other two. Whereas John comes from a caring, loving family, Boy-Zorro's parents are like neglectful and very abusive. And then the issue ends with Boy-Zorro appearing on Earth and attacking John. Alright, the best part about this issue, though, was the way it opened up, because it opened up with Bizarro at what I assume is the grave of the New 52 Bizarro. Like, it opened up in the exact same sequence that the Superman title opened, that the first issue of Superman had in Rebirth. It was the exact same sequence, the same, almost a nearly exact monologue written in Bizarro speech. And I actually did take out my copy of Superman number 1 and like look it over just to make sure I got it was an exact thing, and it was not word for word but beat for beat, which was amazing. To read. Overall, this issue was a fantastic opener. However, the only flaw I would say is that the Bizarro speech may annoy some people while reading it. Alright, my number 1 pick from DC Comics is Batman number 42. This was a very fantastic issue. Basically, the plot is Ivy still has control of the world. She's controlling everyone except Batman and Catwoman. And while Batman and Catwoman are trying to figure out a solution to stop Ivy, they keep getting interrupted by all the members of the Justice League that Poison Ivy has control over. I really love the way Tom King wrote Batman and Catwoman in this issue. Like, they're doing superhero stuff, but the way they talk and interact with each other, they still feel like an average couple, which is great and so funny to read, because you would not expect, of all the superheroes, Batman would really not be the normal one when you think about it. But the way they interacted with each other, the way that they just still sounded like a normal couple out on the town while trying to save the world, shows that they are meant to be with each other, which is great since we're leading into their wedding. Also, the artist of this issue, Michael Janin, who also did the artwork for War of Jokes and Riddles. His artwork in this is stunning. Like, the way he draws Poison Ivy with all the plants around her is just stunning and beautiful. It is very good. And for those reasons, I think this issue really proved to me that Batman is something that should be on everyone's pull list, and it should be one DC comic that everyone should be reading. Alright, last comic. My pick of the week is Amazing Spider-Man 797. Okay, so Norman Osborn begins his latest plan against Spider-Man. However, we find out that Norman still does not remember who Spider-Man is. Mainly because of, one more day, but now he can discover it again due to the events of Spider Island. So Norman basically has one of Spider-Man's allies held hostage, and he tries to get the information out of him until Norman's prisoner has a poor choice of words that allows Norman to figure out Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And it ends with Norman figuring it out just as he's putting on his Green Goblin costume. Okay, so this is the final arc of Dan Slott's Amazing Spider-Man run, and I have loved it. Seriously, I have really if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I have always loved Dan Slott's Spider-Man. And I am super excited. I'm so pumped for this arc because he's bringing back Norman Osborn, but he's not just bringing him back as the Goblin, he's also got the Carnage symbiote now, which is just insane. The entire idea behind this issue is just to give the reader the impression that Norman is on a whole new level of insanity, which he does. Artwork-wise, the artwork's by Stuart Immonen. His facial expressions are just really what sold me on that, because as I was reading the title, it just felt like as the issue progressed, I just felt like Norman was getting more and more crazy. Also, we really get a sense of like how the Carnage symbiote with the Goblin Madness has really changed him. There are a couple of examples in this issue, but I really don't want to talk about them specifically here. Really, if there is only one flaw with this issue, and that is the whole teaser about Peter and MJ getting back together, which at this point I feel like Marvel needs to just stop jerking fans around with it, stop trolling us, and either make it happen or don't. Although I do have a theory that the reason why we're getting teasers this arc is because maybe at the end of it all, when Peter and MJ survived this attack from Osborn, I think they're going to realize that, you know, we just went through all that together. We're still standing. Maybe we should get back together. And that might be open-ended for the next writer, Nick Spencer. If he wants to pursue that option, then he can. I do have a more detailed review on this on my pick of the week, though. If you want to check that out, it's on themarvelreport.com. I'll put a link to the site in the description below, but it should be up on there by the time this video is uploaded, so check that out if you want. I've really enjoyed the majority of Dan Slott's run, and I am so pumped for this finale. It's off to a fantastic start. If you love Spider-Man, I recommend you read this. That's it for my comic review this week. What did you guys think? Were there any comics you thought were good that I didn't talk about? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you do like the weekly reviews and you want me to bring it back full time, just let me know between now to the end of March. Thank you again for watching. I'm Lewis, Spider-Man 1981, saying see you later.